This time around, we're looking at a game that I spent a lot of time on as a kid. It's Phantom Fighter, a simple to play beat 'em up on the NES. As much fun as I had as a kid, as an adult, I found that although I still enjoy the game, it does seem to wear out its welcome in a few levels in. There's not really much of a story to the game. You play as a martial artist named Kenshi, who is tasked to clear out 8 different towns of a creature known as a Kianshi, if I'm pronouncing that right. You have a partner, who I can't remember if he's ever actually named. In each town, Kenshi destroys Kianshis to save the townspeople, who then offer various items to assist you in your quest. You might be wondering what a Kianshi is. Well, luckily for you, I did a bit of research. It's essentially a Japanese hopping zombie. They're supposedly also considered vampires in some lore. You might notice that they hop around a lot and keep their arms out like your typical old school zombies. I've read that this is because of rigor mortis, which does make a little bit of sense to me. So I guess America has zombie flicks, the Japanese have Kianshi flicks. Or not, I really don't know. I've never heard of Kianshis outside this game, so I don't know if any of that's even actually true. I'm just going off to what the interwebs tells me. In any case, that's your goal. Kick Kianshi ass. You start the game on a town street, in which all towns are strangely linear where roads are concerned. You have free access to enter any area you want, short of the very last structure. Before you can enter this, you must find the 3 special orbs. These are signified in buildings labeled as dangers in the air. Once these are cleared, there's no reason to head back inside. Other structures include a temple, which you should always save first, a dojo, which allows you to learn some new moves, and places that simply exist just for you to grind and obtain rewards. There are also some special areas, like graveyards where a spirit may take your cohort, and a building where you can control a baby Kianshi. Moving on, I may as well talk about the combat, since that's what takes up the majority of the game. Again, you can control Kenshi, and when you enter a new building or other area, the game turns into a one-on-one fight. Being that there's only a few buttons on the NES controller, your available moves are fairly limited. In the beginning of the game, you can only get access to a simple punch, kick, and that's about it. Jumping attacks can be performed, but to be perfectly honest, it's hardly ever necessary or useful. After you learn stuff from dojos, you'll be doing crouching punches, side kicks, quad punches, and weird looking floating drop kicks. Most techniques replace prior attacks. Once you learn the turn kick, you won't be able to use the standing high kick. The double punch replaces the single punch. As such, A always kicks and B always punches. Being that this is a fighting game, up jumps. You can crouch and eventually learn an ability to slide around while crouching, and this is very helpful against the taller Kianshis. So yes, you'll be beating up on the Kianshis, but how do they attack? Well, they hop around. And that's about it. Sure, the bosses will do other stuff, and the spirit that you may never fight can throw its head at you, but your basic run-of-the-mill Kianshi just hops around. The only thing that will damage you is their claws, so if you go underneath or over their hands, you won't take damage. This can be tricky since each Kianshi is a different height and jump range, but after the first town or two, you'll probably have figured it out. Besides, if you get your ass kicked a little too much, you can always run back to the entrance and tell your assistant to jet out of there, preferably to head back to a temple to rest. So there are several types of Kianshis. You have pink ones, green ones, red ones, yellow ones, ugly purple ones, tall blue ones, and midget ones. I'm sure I probably missed a few, but that's the majority of them. The green and pink Kianshis are the most common, but you'll see enough of the others. Here's the thing. You'll be seeing these things a lot, and it will feel a lot like grinding. Mainly because in order to get new abilities, you must go to the dojo. In order to get to see the dojo master, you must answer a stupid trivia question. Sometimes the answers are easy, others are a bit more difficult to answer, just due to the time the game was released. The only punishment for getting a question wrong is simply getting thrown out and needing to re-enter the dojo. No loss of items, no damage to life. You just head back on in, answer a different question, and get to see the master. Yeah, okay. He'll then teach you new abilities in exchange for ancient scrolls. In each town, other than 1 or 2 oddballs out, have new abilities to be taught. If you don't learn all of them in one town, they do carry over to the next. Scrolls aren't the only thing the townspeople will give you once you fight your way through the buildings. You can occasionally find 1 of 4 items. You can get a talisman, which stuns the Kianshis and opens them up for a free hit. You can grab a tauntaun, which pushes a zombified enemy backwards onto their ass. You can find an ancient sword, which gives you a slightly extended range but does shit for damage. Finally, you can get a bell, which I'll get to in a minute. As for these items, once you have one in your possession, any area that would normally reward you that exact item will be empty of Kianshis. As such, don't waste your time looking around at them. If you happen to lose an item due to damage, you'll be able to enter one of these buildings again to reclaim one. I'll be honest, most of these items, save for maybe the talisman, aren't worth it. If you get knocked down or hit in any fashion, there's a very high chance that it will break. As such, you lose it. And that bell? Ring it once in one of the rare buildings that contains a baby Kianchi, and you're forced to use it until it dies. If you're into child abuse, by all means, use the baby. It's slow as fuck, does next to no damage, and has the same attack limitations as the regular Kianchis that you're fighting. I've used the baby Kianchi just for this review, but I will say that for the many times I've played this game, I've only used the baby Kianchi one other time. And that was way before I even knew any better. So let's just say you like reading the text. There's 3 different text speeds you can choose from. They range from frozen molasses, slow crawl, and uber hyperspeed. Thankfully, even if you choose a slower speed, you can press select on the town road to cycle through the speeds. I kept it on fast for the whole game, because the villagers don't really contribute much to the shreds of story that do exist in the game. Let me rewind back to the combat, or more accurately, the nuisances of it. Kenshi's movement is a bit hard to get used to. His attacks are stiff, yet walking is actually fairly loose. It can be a bit difficult to get the timing down on where you should be standing in an attack without taking damage from a leap from the bastards. In addition, many of the attacks are nearly useless. There's not enough reasons to use the jumping attacks other than that one graveyard spirit. Once you learn the turn kick from the second town, the Kianchis die much quicker, and you won't need to worry about punching attacks for a very long time, short of the crouching punch. The 4-punch does good damage, but that isn't learned until the very end of the game. And even so, the range of the turn kick still beats out the usefulness of the punch. So to sum up your combat abilities, you're going to be pressing A lot, which leads to the repetition, especially in the last few towns. Oh, and if you die, you do get infinite continues. You do lose half the scrolls that you have, along with all the items you're carrying. In addition, there is a password system made up of 12 digits and card suits. Not too bad, but not too small either. So you do have that option, but the game can be completed anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, depending on how long you'd like to grind for scrolls. Let's move on to the visuals. They're hit or miss. The backgrounds and environments as a whole look pretty impressive. Trees are lining courtyards, the cemeteries have rows upon rows of gravestones, and many of the houses are dilapidated. But then again, the characters themselves look fairly bland. Worse yet are the animations. Kenshi looks decent, but the Kianchis themselves are so pathetic it's not even funny. This is the material that Mystery Science Theater would enjoy making fun of if it was a movie. They hop around endlessly and stab slightly with their claws, but that's literally all they do. Oh, they do fall over, but it's just as stupid looking. You know, I just realized I never talked about the bosses, which can probably be considered the high point of the game. They're all different than the rest of the Kianchis. They start off a bit easier, but eventually they'll start throwing projectiles, doing headbutts from across the room, or just slightly altered Kianchis that aren't much different than the others. Guess when you get down to it, they don't really change that much. But the final boss? After going through 3 rooms, you fight the evil wizard who's raising all the Kianchis. She just teleports around and throws fireballs at you. And that's it. If you can manage to trap her and keep knocking her down, she dies fairly easily. When I played the game for this review, it only took me 1 attempt to kill her, which I was kinda shocked at. The time previous to this when I played it, it took me about an hour because the bitch just wouldn't fall down. So, I guess some luck is involved. Phantom Fighter may not be the best game in the world, but it's still somewhat fun, if not repetitive. It gets easy once you get that turn kick, and the animation of the Kianchis are simply laughable. But it still has its charm. At least, to me it did. I'll admit, you may not like it as much as I did, but then again, there's always that risk with any game. Final score? 7 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.